Studies UiTM Perlis branch. It is an honor to have everyone here. For today's webinar, we will be sharing about qualitative studies, which will be explained by Dr. Razali and Dr. Ling. I shall start by explaining the flow of today's webinar. In a few minutes, Dr. Razlina will explain to us about qualitative research for novice researchers, addressing common dilemmas. There will be three parts to it. The first one is a brief introduction to qualitative research. The second one is common dilemmas faced by novice researchers. And the third, Dr. Razlina's experience as a novice researcher in the field. After that, Dr. Liu will share with us about the quantitative versus qualitative studies. So, while we are listening to these two wonderful speakers, feel free to jot down any questions that you have and ask during the Q&A session. Now, moving on, I would like to briefly introduce our first speaker, the respected Dr. Razlina Razali, who is an APB senior lecturer here in UiTM Arau campus. She completed her PhD in education from the University of Auckland, New Zealand in February 2020, which is this year. Congratulations, Doctor. And it is under the sponsorship of Mara Postgraduate Team. Her PhD thesis was focused on supervision and feedback within undergraduate final year projects in a Malaysian university. Dr. Razlina's research interests include research supervision, feedback, teaching and learning in higher education, and applied linguistics. Without further ado, I would like to call upon Dr. Razlina to talk about qualitative research for novice researchers. Please, Doctor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wardah, for the introduction. Assalamualaikum, good morning, and kia ora koutou. Kia ora is hello everyone in Maori language. Right, so first of all, I would like to thank all of you for being with me and my colleague, Dr. Liu, for our session today. Right, so as you can see, I am still fresh from the PhD oven. I completed my PhD earlier this year, and my study was a qualitative case study. Right, so please allow me to share my screen. Right. So before we begin, Dr. Liu and I would like to make a disclaimer that both of us are still young researchers. So what we're sharing with you today will be from our experiences as novice researchers. So feel free to comment or add anything, okay? If you have anything to share about qualitative research, so please feel free to share, okay, at the end of our presentation. All right. Okay. Right, can you see my slides? Wardah, is that okay? Can you see my slide?
Yes, I can see it clearly.
Okay. All right. But before we move further, okay, I have a question for all of you. Okay, I assume that you're here today because you're interested to learn or to know about qualitative research. And maybe you are planning to conduct one, maybe not now, maybe in the near future. So my question would be, why do you want to conduct a qualitative study? Or why do you think researchers conduct qualitative study? You can respond verbally, or you can type your response in the chat box. Anyone? Why do you want to conduct a qualitative study? Now, you can respond now. I mean, why do you want to conduct a qualitative study, or why do you think researchers conduct qualitative studies? What comes to your mind when we mention the word qualitative studies? To contribute to our field or community, to editing patterns and nuances. All right, okay. Okay, all right, KK. Yes, thank you. Thank you for your responses. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So, all right, thank you for your answers. Okay, so before I started my PhD, I thought, okay, I want to do a qualitative study for my PhD because my first reason was that I felt that I was not good with numbers. So maybe I would have some problems if I do a quantitative research. And the second reason was that I thought writing was my strongest point. So I wouldn't have any problems, writing a qualitative research. But then my PhD happened, and that was when I realized that those two were really big reasons as to why I want to conduct a qualitative study. And I see from your responses here that you have a good understanding, or at least some understanding why we conduct qualitative research. So in general, researchers conduct qualitative studies because they want to know the hows and whys behind people's experiences, understandings, behaviors, and practices. So that's the scholarly answer as to why we conduct a qualitative research. Okay, so here these are the words, okay, that you will see and use in qualitative research. So as you can see, words such as lived experiences, robust, okay, nuance, rich, index. Okay, I can see from your responses just now. So these are the common words used in qualitative studies, qualitative research. All right. So there's no definite definition as to what is a qualitative study. But I want to draw your attention to the second definition here. Okay, it is inductive and it involves interpretation, right? But then uh, there are different school of thoughts, okay, in qualitative studies. At one end, okay, some researchers believe that qualitative studies need to be really inductive, meaning that all the meanings, interpretations must arrive from the data or from the people's experiences. But at the other end, there are researchers who believe that it can be a mix of inductive and deductive reasoning, meaning that we use previous studies or previous theories as a lens to analyze a phenomenon or a case. All right, and I'm at the other end. Okay, I believe that we can also use theories and also past studies as a guideline to analyze the data. Right. Okay, so it is important for us to know where the qualitative researches come from. Okay, that's it. There are three main research paradigms. Okay, of course, there are several, but these are the three main ones. And these paradigms are different, okay, in terms of their ontological and epistemological beliefs. So, briefly, positivism, okay, or as we know, quantitative. Uh, okay, sorry, or quantitative, okay, relies on quantitative scientific methods, and these is prevalent in hard disciplines. Okay, examples of hard disciplines are like biology, um, engineering, and also geomatics, right? And the next one is critical theory, right? So examples of studies within a critical theory paradigm are critical discourse analysis, okay, feminism, political governance, and also studies on marginalized groups of people such as indigenous people, refugees, and LGBTQ groups. All right. So critical theory studies can be qualitative or quantitative. So this one, okay, interpretivism, this is where the qualitative researchers come from. So as qualitative researchers, we believe that reality is subjective and it is unique to the people who experience it. Okay, I give you a simple example. Okay, as a qualitative researcher, I believe that online distance learning, as experienced by the lecturers and students in Malaysia, is different from that experienced by lecturers and students, let's say, in Myanmar or in New Zealand or in China. All right. And because of this uniqueness and also specificness of the studies, there is a concern that findings generated from qualitative studies are not generalizable, okay, to other contexts. And also one uniqueness of qualitative studies is that the researcher works together. The researcher is not a separate entity from the study. Okay, unlike positivism, okay, we work alongside our participants to construct meanings or understandings about a case or a phenomenon, right? So these are some of the characteristics of a qualitative studies. So we study real people, real experience in real settings, okay? Or we study people in their natural settings, all right? So we take into account our participants' perspectives, all right? And also maybe we observe their practices and behaviors. And one of the distinct characters of qualitative research is that the researcher is a research tool. So we are part of the research tool. And because of this, being part of the research tool and, close engagement with the um, participants, okay, it is important for the researcher to practice or to be critical of their position. All right, so the researcher needs to practice reflexivity. He needs to be critical of his or her position in the research. Okay, you must know what's your limit, to what extent is your involvement. Okay, because we don't want to contaminate the data. All right, so that's briefly about what's qualitative research or qualitative studies about. Okay, of course, there's a lot of things to cover about qualitative studies, but this is just, to give you a brief understanding as to what is a qualitative research. Okay, so let's move on to some of the common dilemmas faced by novice researchers. Okay, first one is about data collection methods. Okay, which one should you use? So you can use interviews, observations, documents, or recordings, audio or visual recordings. All right. So to me, in order for you to know which data collection methods that you should use, you must think whether or not this method would be able to collect the data that you want. Okay, so does this method fit the purpose of your study? Okay, and what you can do is you can refer to previous studies of the same topic and see what are the methods that they use. And next thing that you need to consider is the convenience, right? For example, now that we are in the pandemic, okay, so maybe interview through Google Meet, right? Or using any application would be more feasible, okay, or more convenient rather than going to meet and interview your participants face to face. Okay, and also you must think whether or not it would be convenient for you to travel from one site to another, and you must also think about your participants. For example, would it burden your participants if you ask them to write a journal entry every day for 2 weeks? So these are the things that you need to consider. And um, and also, let's say if you are using disabled participants, so maybe you can think of methods that suit their needs. Okay, I give you an example. I have a friend who conducted a study on disabled people in Japan. So her study was about the sexuality of disabled people. So some of the participants were not, they weren't able to express um, their thoughts verbally. So she interviewed the caretaker or the caregiver of the participants. And also she asked her participants to express themselves through poetry or through photos or drawings. So um, well, that's the beauty of qualitative research. You can be flexible and it is subjective. So you can choose any method that suits the purpose of your study and also suit your participants and situation. All right. Okay, as I mentioned just now, one of the concerns is about the generalizability of findings. Okay, so well, if you ask me whether the findings are generalizable, yes, there is. We call it naturalistic generalization. So, to achieve this, it is the responsibility or the onus is on the researcher to provide a rich and detailed descriptions of the context of the study site, the research processes undertaken, and also some evidence. Okay, so that the readers, when they read, they can get a good understanding about the context, the processes involved, and also you want to give the readers a sense of being there. So when they have a good understanding about this, they will be able to generalize the findings, okay, to similar settings, right, or to their own setting. Um, Okay, next concern is about the number of participants. Okay, so in qualitative research, the number of participants don't really have an effect on the quality of your study. Okay, however, you need to try to achieve depth and breadth. Okay, for example, if you have a small number of participants, what you can do is you can use multiple ways of collecting data from them. So rather than just using interviews, maybe you can have observations, okay, a collection of documents from them. Okay, for example, in my for my PhD, I only had 8 participants. Okay, four student and supervisor pairs. So what I did was I used multiple ways of collecting data. I interviewed them. I interviewed each of them 4 times. Okay, I observed them and also I collected some artifacts or some documents from them. Okay, and another way to know that whether or not you have achieved the right number of participants is when you reach data saturation. Okay, so let's say if you're just using interviews for your study, so you stop your data collection. Okay, once once there's no new findings coming out from your interviews. Okay, so that's when you stop your data collection. Okay, once the data is saturated. All right. So okay, one of the main concerns of qualitative studies is about the issue of biasness. So because it is subjective and it relies a lot on our interpretation, so biasness is really a huge issue. But then don't worry, we have several ways how to establish the trustworthiness of our study. Okay, so the first one is member checks. Okay, for member checks, you can invite your participants to read. Okay, you can ask them to read your interview transcripts to make sure that you have transcribed their words in a way that to make sure that the meaning, the way they want to convey it, is different, is same as our transcription. All right, and also you can also ask them to read the drafts of your findings, and again this is to make sure that your interpretations are the same as their understandings or how they interpret the phenomenon or case. And also when they read the drafts, okay, this can help them to make sure that their anonymity has been preserved. Okay, next one is you can use triangulation. So triangulation is you use multiple ways of collecting data. Okay, so rather than just using interviews, you can use observations, right? And also maybe video recordings. Okay, and here you collect data across different times. So you can collect data at different time points. For example, in my study, because my study was conducted within undergraduate research projects, so I interviewed my participants once at the beginning of the research project, twice in the middle of the project, and also lastly at the end of the research project. So this can also help you triangulate the data. And for space, maybe you can use participants from different programs of studies. So you can use participants from the sciences and non-sciences, or maybe participants in at UiTM Perlis, UiTM Shah Alam, UiTM Dengkil, okay, across different institutions. And also for people, okay, what you can do is rather than just interviewing students, maybe you can interview students and lecturers, or lecturers and their superiors. Okay, so that's how you achieve triangulation. Okay, for peer debriefing, okay, to achieve this, it is important for you to always have discussions and dialogues or debates, if I may say, with your peers or colleagues, especially those who are familiar with the research context or with the topic. Okay, so so this is to make sure that the findings are not just based on our interpretation. We are taking into consideration feedback from our peers or colleagues. So I'm just sharing my experience. Okay, during my PhD, I had frequent meetings with my supervisors. So they always ask me questions about my context, about my research processes, because they were not familiar with the Asian setting or the setting in Malaysia. And also for the data analysis, what we did was, before we started the data analysis, my supervisors and we coded the interview transcripts separately. Okay, we chose 2 interview transcripts and we coded them separately. And after that, we met, have a meeting, and also we discussed about our codes. And also we used to discuss about the themes and sub-themes generated. Right, to those who are not familiar with qualitative studies, coding is part of the data analysis process. Okay, right. And okay, Right. Transferability. Okay, to achieve this, okay, the researcher needs to provide thick descriptions of the case, right? To give the readers a sense of being there. So what you can do is you can include your participants' words in the form of quotes in the findings. Okay, I can give you an example from my paper. Okay, right. Hmm, okay, okay. So this one, I hope you can see it clearly. Okay, these are my findings. Okay, okay, here, these are the teams. This is the team and also sub-team, right? These are from my interpretations, right? And these here are my interpretation, and these are the words from my participants. Okay, so you can include the words of your participants in the form of long quotes or maybe short quotes like this. Okay, so you use their quotes, their words alongside your interpretation. Okay, um, yeah, and this is what we call thick descriptions, right? Okay, next one is audit trail. Okay, to achieve audit trail, it is important for the researcher to describe the research process in detail. Okay, this is especially important if you are doing your postgraduate study. Okay, you need to describe everything in detail. You need to be able to justify everything. Okay, and you can also include your materials such as the questions you use for the interviews, your observation protocols, okay, your codes, all the messy things, your field notes. You can also include that in your appendix, right? So people know, oh, are the these are the evidence, okay, right? And lastly is conformability. Okay, again, okay, if you notice, I keep on repeating, you need to provide detailed description. So that's what you need to achieve, detailed explanation or description. So you must tell why do you choose these people to be your participants? Okay, uh, what kind of sampling procedure that you apply? Okay, is it random or convenience or purposive? And and why do you use interviews? Okay, as you know, there are different types of interviews. Okay, so why do you use for example, semi-structured interviews? Why do you choose, or why do you choose unstructured interviews? So you need to be able to justify. Okay, same thing as data analysis. There are different ways how you can analyze data. Okay, there's thematic analysis, grounded theory, constant comparative. Okay, so why do you choose that particular approach to analyze your data? Okay, and okay, so here in some studies, especially the inductive one, the highly inductive ones like autoethnography, yeah. Okay, you can see there's a section where the researcher reports his or her position, okay, values and beliefs. So maybe they tell you, there's a section where you can read where the researcher tells you about themselves. Okay, for example, if you're writing on teachers' beliefs, okay, so there will be a section where the researcher will write about, okay, his position, his or her position, maybe like, I'm a lecturer at tertiary level, I've been teaching for 4 years, blah blah blah. All right. Okay, so these are the ways how you can establish a trustworthiness of your study, right? Okay, let's move on. I hope that you're all okay. I'll move on to the last part of my presentation, which is my experience as a novice in the field. So, well, before I started my data collection, all my supervisors our supervisor's advice to me was that just have fun. But then I did not realize that data collection involves like really a huge amount of work, and you have lots of data after that. So yeah, no one warned me about that part. Okay. All right. So just sharing my experience so that you won't repeat the same mistakes. All right, as I did. Okay. The first issue that I faced was in recruiting the participants. Okay. So remember, our participants, our main source of data is our participants. So of course we're desperate. Okay, we're desperate, but we must not show our desperation to our participants. So though we desperately want them to participate in our study, we must make sure not to force them. Okay. All right. So don't force your people into participating in your study. And one thing I faced was that I had difficulties in getting the right number of participants. So what I did was I sought help from my already secured participants. I asked them to suggest names of their colleagues or their peers that I can contact and invite to participate in my study. Okay. And another thing is you have to choose suitable words. Okay, try not to make your participants scared or anxious to participate in your study. For example, the word evaluate can make people uneasy, especially if you're saying that I'm going to observe you and record you. So it will make people scared. So what I did was okay, when I met my participants, before the formal data collection started, I met them and I tried to establish rapport with them. So I asked them about themselves, just try to get them comfortable with me. And also, I explain to them about what it involves if they participate in my study. And I said that I'm here to learn from you. Okay, you are here to help me to understand more about my topic. Okay, because I'm interested in knowing about feedback and supervision. Okay, so be humble. Okay, because you are there to learn from them. Okay, and also respect your participants. Okay, they're human. Okay, and sometimes maybe they will forget to maybe give you the data that you want. So please remind them, softly. Okay, I respect them because they have other responsibilities other than being our participant. We want our participants to be comfortable and be cooperative because we don't want them to withdraw from our study because that would be a huge problem. Okay, because remember, no participants, no data, no data, no study. So that's scary. All right. Okay. Okay. So the next issue that I faced was the execution of the data collection process. Okay, I just want to share with you. This was my data collection plan. So I had everything well planned during my proposal stage. So I thought that okay, I won't have problems. I have a really comprehensive and detailed plan. Okay, but then when once I entered the field, I realized that it's not really easy to work with that plan. As I said, our participants they have other responsibilities, so sometimes it is impossible or it's kind of difficult to get them give us the data at the time points that we wanted. But it's okay. Okay, what you can do is you can provide the data collection timetable or schedule to the participants so that they will know when they need to meet you for interviews or when they need to give you their journal entries, for example. But then don't worry if everything does not go according to your plan. Be flexible, okay? And if there are changes in your data collection process, please take note on the changes, write them down, and you can report these changes or the issues that you face in your thesis or in your study later. All right. So these two quotes in greens are from my supervisors. So don't worry, it can be messy. You will drown in data. You will feel exhausted, but it's okay. Just keep going. All right. And third issue that I faced was, management of data. As I said, we have lots of data. Okay, we will drown in data. Okay, so it is important for you to back up your data. Okay, right, and also because we have large amount of data, sometimes we might forget which one that we have transcribed or which ones that we have analyzed and which one we haven't. And this happened to me. Uh, okay, the one point I've finished, analyzing and reporting about my interviews and also observations. But then later on, my supervisors and I realized that we haven't analyzed the artifacts or the documents. So it's always useful to have a checklist, what you have done or what you haven't done, right? And okay, for interviews, observations, make sure you start transcribing as soon as possible. Okay, uh, right. Sometimes we think, oh, it's just a 30-minute interview, but that 30-minute interview might take you uh, maybe 1 hour or 1.5 hours to transcribe. Okay, this is especially true if you are transcribing it verbatim. Verbatim meaning that word by word. So make sure you start transcribing as soon as possible. Okay, because the sooner you start transcribing, the sooner you can start your data analysis process. All right. And maybe after this presentation, we'll think that, there seems to be a lot of work involved in qualitative research. Well, yes, it is. That's true. There's a lot of work involved, but don't worry, there's a system to it. And to me, uh, maybe you would think, oh, okay, that's a lot of work. But to me, qualitative research is gratifying. Okay, it gives me a sense of satisfaction, and it is interesting because you get to work with your participants. You get to know them, okay, and you get to know their understandings, okay, how they see things. Okay, maybe it will be it's different from the way you see things, and you get to observe the behaviors and also their practices. So to me, that's really interesting. You get to learn from other people. All right. So last but not least, don't be overwhelmed. Okay. Just enjoy your research journey, and thank you everyone for joining me. Thank you. All right. So these are the list of references. Okay. To me, if you are a novice researcher, I find this book from Patton. Okay. This book really is really helpful because the language is comprehensive. It covers everything from the methods, okay, and also the approaches to sampling, data analysis. Is really good, and the language is simple. So as a second language user of English, I find this book really helpful. All right, so that's the end of my presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Razlina, for the insightful sharing just now. On behalf of the audience, especially for the beginner researchers, It is vital to identify the common problems when conducting a qualitative research so that there will be more room for improvement later on. I personally hope that by addressing the dilemmas faced by novice researchers, we will be more confident with our own studies. Thank you very much, Doctor. Next, we have Dr. Liu Yali. Dr. Liu graduated from the Department of Chinese Language and Literature of Malaya University. She has experiences in teaching Mandarin at primary, secondary, and tertiary level for almost 15 years. Her research interests are on Malaysian Chinese literature, Chinese Buddhism literature, and teaching Mandarin as a foreign language. Without further ado, let us welcome Dr. Liu to elaborate more on the difference between quantitative and qualitative studies. Please, Doctor.
Okay, thank you, Warda. Can you see my slide?
Yes, I can see it very clearly.
Okay, all right, thank you. Good morning, everyone here. First of all, I want to clarify that I'm not an expert in qualitative research, but a beginner in this area. What I often do is actually literary research, although the method of literary research tends to be more qualitative, but I think it's somewhat different from the qualitative research of linguistics. So if there are any omissions, please correct me. Okay, yesterday, Mr. Adi shared the skills of using quantitative software with us. And just now, Dr. Razlina also explained the qualitative research to us in detail. So today, I would like to discuss the qualitative research through the comparisons with quantitative research here. So here are the 5 sessions that I would like to share with you today. So first is the differences between the two, and next is the advantages and disadvantages of the two research design, the analysis of the data, the development of the two designs, and the combinations of these two. Okay. Okay, as you know, there are many differences between quantitative and qualitative research. So it is difficult to define the two designs in 1 or 2 sentences. But to make questions clear, let's first look at the definitions of punch. Okay, quantitative research is an empirical research where the data are in the form of numbers. Qualitative research is an empirical research where the data are not in the form of numbers. So according Punch defines both quantitative and qualitative studies are empirical research, but they have different forms of data. Therefore, the best and easiest way to distinguish between these two studies is to check whether the data collected is in numerical form or not. And some researchers, such as Perlis and Beth in 2012, also distinguishing these two studies using the numerical narrative contrast, where the quantitative research use numbers, okay, while qualitative use narrative to explain the experience and perceptions. Okay, here I give 2 examples. Okay, the first example, we want to know our students' vocabulary. So we designed a test. We pick 100 words at random from the syllables, but students are asked to give the Malay meaning, and the students are given to give the Malay meaning of each English word. The maximum score is 100 points, 1 point per word. The total score of the test paper indicates the students' vocabulary. So here, students' test scores are given in numerical form, so there are quantitative data. Okay, we look at the second example. We want to know students' strategies for expanding their vocabulary. So we interview 20 students one by one and ask them to describe how they have expanded their vocabulary. This is an open-ended questions, and students are bound to give a variety of answers. We record the students' answers word by word, and the data we collect is the literal data. So this is qualitative research. These two examples are very easy for us to distinguish the quantitative and also qualitative research design. However, in fact, there are many other important differences between quantitative and qualitative research that affect all aspects of the research process, in addition to the main differences between numbers and words. I will describe these differences below. Okay, this table is a modified version of the Malhotra in 1993. It lists other major differences between quantitative and qualitative design. We'll go through one by one. Okay, first, the research objective of quantitative and qualitative design are different. The objective of quantitative research is to investigate the variables that have been identified in the scientific literature and to test various hypotheses about these variables. But the purpose of qualitative research is to determine the variables to be further studied and to form hypotheses to be tested in future research courses. In other words, quantitative research is mostly used to confirm previous research results, while qualitative research is mostly used to explore research. From here, we can see that the qualitative study presents a kind of openness. Researchers' theory is found and formed gradually. So along the research process, theory is constantly choose, be changed, be fixed. Okay. Second is that research questions for quantitative design are specific in advance and are proposed prior to data collections. In fact, the procedure for selecting research objects, data collection, and data analysis has been established. So researchers set out to study everything in detail. On the contrary, the research questions used for qualitative design are brought before data collection, but they will be gradually focused with the deepening of the research. And therefore, the focus of data collections in qualitative research is constantly changing, and the way of data analysis will often change. Okay, quantitative research require large samples. Okay, to meet the statistical requirements, I think at least is 50, okay, and maybe until 100 or thousands. While qualitative research usually involves only small samples. Okay, the reason is that qualitative research is time-consuming and laborious, and large samples are unavailable. Okay, so as far as data collection is concerned, the collection procedure of quantitative data is usually fixed and rigid compared with that of qualitative data. In contrast, in qualitative research, the data collection procedures are flexible and often need to be adjusted according to the situation. Okay, since qualitative research is mostly used in exploratory research and involve a small numbers of cases, the conclusions drawn from qualitative research are not as broad in application as quantitative research. Now, let us watch a short video to strengthen our understanding of these two.
Quantitative research often utilizes statistics and numerical data. It can also use scientific experiments, surveys, and structured observation. A quantitative study doesn't require personalized interpretation, so it should be replicable by anyone. Let's say you want to find out which leading brand of fertilizer works best on Venus flytraps. You would start with a hypothesis. For instance, that brand A is the best. You would test the different fertilizers on a large sample size of plants, carefully control for environmental conditions, and precisely measure all of the plants. If your conclusion is right, then other people should get the same result when they repeat the test. Qualitative research is more subjective and requires the researcher to interpret data in order to form thematic ideas. It often includes interviews with open-ended questions, case studies of specific situations, and loose observation. Let's say you want to find out if a youth program helps underprivileged teens. You would want to talk to the participants and ask them what they think, then interpret your results. So to recap, quantitative research is objective, concrete, and measured, while qualitative research is subjective, interpretive, and descriptive.
All right. Okay. So I think now you can differentiate between the quantitative research and also qualitative research. Sorry. Okay. Now we look at the advantages and disadvantages of these two. First, we look at the qualitative research. Okay, there are some benefits of using qualitative research methods. Firstly, qualitative research approach produce the very detailed description of participants' feelings, opinions, and experiences, and interprets the meaning of their actions. In terms of language testing, for example, Bachman in 1998 showed in his study that qualitative research results provide the relationship of information processing with performance deeply. Okay, secondly, there are some who argue that qualitative research approach holistically understand the human experience in specific setting. Okay. And thirdly, interpretivism research approach is regarded as an ideographic research, the study of individual cases or events, and it has abilities to understand different people's ways, meanings, and events. In language testing, the qualitative research techniques analyzes the candidate behavior, interview behavior, and cross-cultural influences on behavior during the speaking test. Okay, fourthly, the qualitative research permits the researchers to discover the participants' inner experience and to figure out how meanings are shaped through and in culture. For example, in terms of assessing written assignments, satisfactory, good, or 60 marks out of 100 are used by the assessors. But we actually don't really know what do the satisfactory or good mean. So the studies using qualitative approach can help us understand the meaning of the scores or grade. Okay, fifthly, qualitative research methods such as participant observation, unstructured interviews, direct observation, describing records are most commonly used for collecting the data. During the data collection, the researcher interacts with the participants directly, such as it happens while data collection through interviews. Consequently, data collection is subjective and detailed. Okay, lastly, qualitative research design has a flexible structure as the design can be constructed and reconstructed to a great extent. Thus, the thorough and appropriate analysis of an issue can be produced by utilizing qualitative research methods, and therefore the participants have freedom to determine what is consistent for them. As a result, the complex issue can be understood easily. Okay, beyond the above advantages, some limitations are obvious. First, Silversman in 2010 argues that qualitative research approaches sometimes leave out contextual sensitivities and focus more on meanings and experience. For example, Cumming engaged 6 countries, include Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Japan, and Thailand, and experienced writing instructors of these countries in his research. But it seems that the contextual influence on the assessment is not taken into account at all in this research, because it has looked at the writing instructors' expertise and bypass what impacts of these countries' culture, for example, would be on writing assessment. Second, policymakers may give low credibility to results from qualitative approach in terms of educational practice in United States. National and state policy makers sought to quantify teachers' and students' performance. And in many social science, quantitative orientations are frequently give more regard. Okay, third, in terms of research method, smaller sample size raises the issue of generalizability to the whole population of the research. Having studied the language testing assessment in Hong Kong qualitatively, LAMS in 2015 admitted that due to the small sample size, the study results do not wish to claim wider generalizations to other contexts. Okay, then data interpretation and analysis may be more difficult and complex. Birch and Ling also commented that qualitative research is a long, hard road with elusive data on one side and stringent requirements for analysis on the other. Along with the data interpretations and analysis issue, Scott claimed that developing the undeveloped questions into a researchable form is harder. Okay, finally, the analysis of the cases take a considerable amount of time, and one can generalize the results to the larger populations in only a very limited way. Okay, for example, in language testing and assessment research, to devise a new policy within a short period of time, the policymakers may demand quantitative research instead of qualitative research. However, despite these shortcomings, the qualitative research becomes prominent in language testing research as it's a regular accompaniment with quantitative data analysis, to which reports of standard setting are generally confirmed. Next, we will consider the advantages and disadvantages of quantitative research. Okay, the quantitative findings are likely to be generalized to a whole population or subpopulations because it involves the large sample which is randomly selected. Besides sampling, data analysis is less time consuming as it uses the statistical software such as SPSS and JASP. Then quantitative research is to be based on positivism paradigm of measuring variables. Language proficiency as assessment research, for example, conducted by Carroll, shows that there are different variables such as tasks in 4 subdomains, speaking, writing, reading, and listening, plus variables from beginning, intermediate, and advanced, and also the native speaker variables, British, American, Canadian, okay, and etc. Okay, given the strength above, the quantitative research has limitations too. Okay, the positivism research paradigm leaves out the common meaning of social phenomenon. It also fails to as certain deeper underlying meaning and explanations. Okay, another limitation of quantitative research is that the positivism cannot account for how the social reality is shaped and maintained, or how people interpret their actions and others. In quantitative language testing research, it is found that the study just investigate and estimate the language skills, proficiency, scoring, and so on. A further weakness of quantitative research approach is that it has tendency of taking a snapshot of a phenomenon. For example, the study of Fidalgo in 2014 engaged a large number of participants, about 400, to show the testing statistical significance. Therefore, it has not been possible to tap information deeply. Rather, it has given the overall picture of the variables. Lastly, the quantitative research paradigm overlooks the respondents' experiences and perspective in highly controlled setting because there lacks a direct connection between researchers and the participants when collecting the data. As a result, the data obtaining method becomes objective. The study of Wu in 2015 showed as he engaged 498 participants in the study of language ability test by distributing the test legs. This shows that the study has been unable to elicit the participants' perceptions as the researcher had no connection with them, just handing out the test legs. Although the above drawbacks exist with the quantitative research, a considerable amount of research is being conducted in the arena of language testing and assessment by employing quantitative research methods and approaches. Language assessment has a tradition of employing psychometric procedures and a strong orientations of quantitative research methods, focusing on test score validity. Okay, now we come to the part of data analysis. The data analysis of quantitative research is generally carried out through some very famous software such as SPSS, okay, the FPS. As long as you have mastered the skills of using the software, we can operate it simply. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about qualitative data analysis. As with quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis also requires the establishment of valid data files. Obviously, it's more demanding and difficult to establish qualitative data files than quantitative data file. Okay. In general, 3 tasks are required to establish a qualitative data file. Okay, first is the transcribe the audio data on the tab. Second is according to the specific research problem, separate the related text data. Okay, we can rearrange the data. Third is show the separated text data with charts, further delete, compress, and integrate the separated data through tables, charts, summaries, and etc. So implicit in qualitative data is a theory which gradually emerges from the data through systematic analysis of the data. Okay, qualitative data analysis consists of 2 basic tasks, which is coding and writing memos. Okay, coding is divided into 3 types. Open coding, actual coding, and selective coding. These 3 coding methods generate 3 types of code. The purpose of writing memos is to record the researcher's thoughts during the coding process. In a word, these records are all in the internal activities of the researcher in the process of data encoding. So the task of coding and writing memos involve two main types of mental activity, abstractions and comparison. Qualitative analysis is difficult because there is no fixed procedure. However, in order to facilitate the description and discussion, we break down the thought process to show that the three levels of coding procedures correspond to the three levels of abstraction. Okay, first we look at the open coding. Concepts in the data are discovered and then identified concepts are categorized. Through the comparison of data, find out the similarities and differences between them. On this basis, then establish the concept and concept classification. Okay, for example, Wen and Guo in 1998 investigated the role of mother tongue thinking in English picture viewing and compositions by using the method of thinking aloud. The results show that the main functions of native language thinking include conversion mediation, content verification mediation, content generation mediation, and etc. The whole process of coding is not a linear process but needs constant correction. Okay, next is access coding. View combinations of categories to find the access connecting the categories and their subcategories to form a complete picture. The key of access coding is to find the center access between the categories. But what is the center access? Again, let's take the category of content generation mediation. This category contains 6 subcategories of reasoning, judgment, association, questioning, monitoring, and evaluation. Obviously, these 6 different behaviors are fundamentally different psychologically, but they are all behaviors that generate writing content during the writing process. Therefore, the central access in this example is the function. In other words, each of these 6 activities serve the same functions and generates writing content. Okay, next is selective coding. The selection of an aspect as a core or center category that represents the subject of the study. Once the core category is selected, the focus of analysis is highlighted. Around this core category, we can gather all related categories to form a theory. It is obvious that the core category is the key to construct a new theory. Then, what kind of category is the core category? Okay, so Struts lists a series of criteria for measuring the core category. First, must be the center category. Second, must appear frequently in the data. Third, explanations involving these categories must be logical and consistent. Fourth, the names or words used to describe the center category should be abstract and can be used in other directly related fields of study. Okay, the last is the theory form has depth and explanatory power. Okay, there are many tools we can use to do the coding. For example, using Excel, words table, highlight, or you want to put the data into the envelope. We also can use software such as Atlas, Nivo, Quicos to help us to code. Now let us see how we can code the data through the Quicos software.
Qualitative is a simple software tool for helping you analyze qualitative text data like transcripts of interviews, focus groups, online surveys, or you can even use it for literature and systematic reviews. It's designed to be easy to use and learn, with a fraction of the cost and training requirements of other qualitative software. The themes in your research are shown by bubbles that grow as you add data to them. You can see your findings emerge in the intuitive visual interface and stay close to your data. You'll find it a lot easier than trying to analyze qualitative data with highlighters, Word or Excel, and Qualcomm is much quicker to learn than other qualitative analysis software. But it still has powerful tools like keyword search with synonyms, side-by-side comparisons of subgroups, and visualizations that show connections in your data. Once you're done, you can share your data with detailed reports, visual overviews, or even Word exports that look like you've just coded them with highlighters. Qualcomm also runs the same on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and has cheap licenses that don't expire or lock you out of your data. Download a free trial today and see for yourself how Qualcomm makes qualitative analysis simple.
All right. Actually, I haven't really used this software yet. I usually use a very traditional method, that is Excel and Word, for sorting and analysis. This software looks great. I wish that for those who are expert in this area, for example, Dr. Tisha, familiar with Nivo, is it? Okay, can share the further information with us next time. Okay, we look at the right memorandum. Writing memos is a basic task of qualitative data analysis, the purpose of which is to record the information obtained through abstractions and comparisons and the inspirations that occurs in the brain during the coding process. Writing a memo forces us to pay spatial attention to the data and the directions of thinking. With memos, our analysis results can easily be modified, synthesized, or deleted during subsequent analysis. Okay, the validity of qualitative analysis means that the code found can interpret the data. In other words, the code should be fully supported by the data, and researchers should not impose their own ideas of on the data. The reliability of qualitative analysis means that two or more researchers can obtain similar code for the same set of data. To ensure the validity and reliability of qualitative analysis, it is better for two researchers to analyze the same set of data independently and then discuss the analysis results together. If some disputes cannot be resolved, third parties should be invited to join the discussion. The same data can also be analyzed by the researchers themselves after a period of time. Okay, now we look at the development. Okay, which one is better, quantitative or qualitative? Quantitative and qualitative issues actually have long been debated. Reviewing the history, we can roughly divide it into two stages. First is a single type design stage, and second is a hybrid design stage. We look at the first one. Okay, from the 19th century to the middle of the 20th century, either quantitative or qualitative research was used in a particular study. We call this phase the single design phase. In the 1950s, quantitative design research was in the ascendant, while qualitative research was in the marginal position. Quantitative research is widely used mainly because in the 20th century, quantitative research in the natural science achieved great success. The social science imitated the natural science to demonstrate their scientific status. They try to quantify what they are studying and establish a relationship between two or more variables. At the time, quantitative findings were considered more persuasive than verbal statements. Without numbers, people would doubt the science of their research. However, in the 1960s, quantitative design began to be questioned, and qualitative design gradually entered the mainstream of social science research. Many social scientists believe that social reality is different from natural reality, and that is inappropriate to simply transfer research designs used in the natural science to the social science. Okay, natural scientists can study natural objects in isolations, but social scientists, as a part of society, we cannot do like this. So since the 1960s, the debate on quantitative and qualitative issues has become more and more fierce. Supporters of both designs insist on their own views and emphasize their advantages without compromise. Okay. Okay, since the 1980s, many social scientists have begun to realize that this pointless debate over who is better and who is worse is fruitless. So they recognize that the world is complex and that both quantitative and qualitative design are necessary if the ultimate goal of our research is to fully understand the world. They believe that the two designs have their own advantages and disadvantages and can complement each other rather than oppose each other. Okay, Merton in 1981 emphasized that the results obtained from the combination of the two designs can often have a more comprehensive and in-depth understanding of the research object, and the results are more reliable than the single design method. Markey in 1994 have the same view. He said, in reality, qualitative and quantitative research complement each other and jointly create new knowledge. In recent years, more and more researchers choose the research design that suits them according to their research needs. And Perlis and Betts in 2012 described advantages of using a mixed method approach, including complementary practicality, incrementality, enhanced validity, and collaboration. Mixed methods use words and numbers, so the study is not limited to using just one method of data collection. Okay, now we go to the last part of my presentations, which is about the combinations of these two designs. Okay, the hybrid research design includes both quantitative and qualitative research design. However, the two designs are arranged in a variety of ways. From time, it can be divided into sequential design and convergent design. Okay, the sequential design is the use of a specific quantity of research design before or vice versa for qualitative research design. The order of the two designs naturally depends on the research question, and if the research question is not changed, the order cannot be changed. So there are three options for a hybrid design. First is convergent design. And B and C is sequential design, but they have difference. We look at the examples. Okay, example 1 is about the convergent design. This study attempts to answer the question, should learning a second language begin in the first grade of primary school in Malaysia? The research objects include students, parents, teachers, and administrators. This research is divided into two convergent parts, quantitative research and qualitative research. Okay, in the quantitative part of the study, first graders and their parents were asked to answer two separate questionnaires. Foreign language teachers and administrators will interview separately in the qualitative research section. The two sets of data are equally important because they answer the same questions from different angles. Okay. Okay, B is the sequence design. Is start from the quantitative research first and followed by qualitative. The study attempts to address two questions. First, to what extent is the mother tongue involved in the second language writing process? And second, how to use mother tongue in the process of second language writing. First of all, the 100 students answer question A. The question A design problems are connected with the use of mother tongue in second language writing process. According to the students' answer to the question A, 15 students who mostly use mother tongue during their second language writing process were selected. They were required to write essays with the second language and thinking aloud process were recorded. Okay, so this one. The results of quantitative research part answer the first questions. Okay, question A will answer these questions. The result obtained in the qualitative research, okay, interview with the 15 students, okay, will answer the second questions. Okay, now we look at the third example. Okay, this research is done by Gu in 1997. He tried to investigate, okay, first, what learning strategies do non-English learners measure use? And second, to what extent is the use of these strategies related to their vocabulary learning? So for the first questions, he used a qualitative research design to conduct spread interviews with a group of second-year undergraduates with 3 levels of English proficiency. According to the interview results, a question A was designed for quantitative analysis, and the second research questions were answered accordingly. The conclusion here is that I think there is no good or bad research method itself. Only the difference between whether we use it right or wrong. Each method has its own characteristics and limitations. The process of second language acquisitions is complex and involves many factors. To fully and deeply understand the essences of second language acquisitions, it requires the organic combinations of multiple methods. So for today's, I just give a brief introduction for combinations of quantitative and qualitative research. In fact, there have other designs which we can do further study and research in the future. Okay, so that is all I can share with all of you today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Liu, for sharing your knowledge with us. I myself learned new valuable knowledge, especially in making decisions, either to choose qualitative or quantitative method. Planning for a research method is very crucial so that you serve as a guide to the researcher. So let us move on to the Q&A session. If you have any questions or inquiries, feel free to type them in the chat box and our speakers will be more than happy to answer them. While waiting for the other to type their answers and questions, I have a question to Dr. Razlina.
Yes.
Okay, Doctor. with
I'm
all
still here.
these different ways of doing a research, one can get lost, especially for a beginner researcher. So, what is your advice for a beginner pursuing qualitative research?
All right. Well, as a beginner, I think first you need to know why do you want to conduct a qualitative research. Okay. I remember we want to know about the hows and whys, and we want to study about people. All right. And also another thing is it's always useful to read other people's work, so you know how to write qualitative research. And also read a lot on the books, okay, on research, qualitative research. As I mentioned just now, pattern is a good start, and also for uh, if you're interested to conduct a qualitative case study, maybe you would like to read books written by Robert Yin, Robert Stick, Miriam. Okay, those books would be helpful for you. And of course, always seek help or advice, feedback from peers or colleagues who are familiar with qualitative research. All right, because it can be a bit overwhelming and a bit confusing. But don't be discouraged. Like I said, it's interesting. Trust me, it is interesting. so yeah, I think that would be my advice. And you need to know that some topics is more suitable for you to use a quantitative approach rather than a qualitative approach. So it depends on what you're looking for. All right. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much,
Dr. Liu, do you want to
Razlina.
Dr. Liu, do you want to add anything?
My advice also quite same with Dr. Razlina is to read other people's research and papers, learn from the others' friends, and get the latest research methods. Okay.
Okay. If I want to add, if you read, there are different designs. Okay, and because of its subjectivity, there's no. If you read, thesis from other students, you will see that there's no structure. There's no definite structure on how you write the qualitative study. So it depends if you want to write and there's one thesis which this student he wrote about how childhood stories how stories governed his childhood. So it was like he was narrating his childhood. It was like a story something like that, yeah. And he won the best thesis at our university. So yeah, there are different ways. So you need to be aware of that. Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
That is very interesting. Next, we have a question from Tin She said that I feel confused about descriptive method in using quantitative and qualitative analysis. Please, and to interview the participants, is it better to choose few ones? I guess this questions might refer to Dr. Liu.
All right. I try to give an example, and I have do research about the learning strategies used by Malay Chinese learner before. So first, I will choose like one class about 40 to 50 students. Okay, I will give them the questionnaire first. Okay, to know about which learning strategies are used by them. Okay, then from that and compare with their results, I will choose the for the best learner among them, and I do the interview with them. Okay, to make sure which are the learning strategies are mostly used by them. So I can do the comparisons between the general learner and also the good learner. I'm not sure whether I answer your questions. Maybe Dr. Las can give more details about this.
I'm okay with that.
Next, we have a question from Dr. So, where she wants to know more about the kind of transcription of our data in our research. What is needed?
Doctor, so is it about the transcription or the analysis? You mean the approaches to the analysis? So sequence design, Dr. Liu, maybe can you I think you touched on that just now, right? The sequence design.
Okay, sequence designs is based on your research questions. Okay, we can do from maybe qualitative research first and followed by the quantitative research, or quantitative research first and followed by qualitative research, or we do both, and the result of both research will answer one questions. That means they are just from different angles. Okay, so how you want to arrange the sequence of the designs is based on your research questions. Okay.
Yes. Okay. But in your sequence design, you explained that after we have done the quantitative research and we have to transcribe our data, and then I think you have explained two ways in sequencing design, and maybe B and C, quality and results, and the third one is quantity and results. So maybe I'm confused about that.
Oh, all right. So if you we go back to the example I give it better back forward. Can you see? Is it you asked about this one?
Yes. So here in this slide, you explained sequence design. Yes. Yes. In this design.
Okay, this is just one type of the, actually have many combinations. Okay, so what I showed here is just one type of the combination. So that means if you want to do the quantitative first, okay, you can give the question A to all the students.
Yes.
Okay, so after you analysis the results, okay, from the question A, okay, you know, okay, which learning strategies are mostly used by the students, and they get the very good results. So from these 40 or 50 students, you choose like 4 to 5 students, the very good Chinese learner. Okay, we pick up them and do the interviews with them, so that we can know better which learning strategies are mostly used by them, and they are different with the strategies that used by general learner.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can do the comparisons. Okay, so and for this one's qualitative first and followed by quantitative. Yeah, this one's we can use better same example. We choose randomly few students get to ask about their learning strategies. Okay, and we know most of them may be interesting using like cognitive strategies or social strategies. So we do our question A based on these strategies that we get from our interviewee. Okay, after that we give the question A to the whole class to see the results, the learning strategies that mostly used in maybe one class, okay, or one university, and so on. Yeah, that is what I can share with you. Okay, maybe others you can share more example. Okay, thank you, Dr. Su.
Uh,
Yes. So can we call this method like a mixed method? We in Myanmar, when we let our students do their MA thesis, so we use these two two methods, quality as well as a quantity. Both methods are used, so we can call it a mixed method, right?
yeah. Yes.
Yes.
I think what Dr. Liu presented just now is a mixed method design, right?
Yes.
So for mixed methods, is in a different paradigm. You may want to read more on pragmatism. So I'm just explaining to novice researchers like me who are not familiar with that. So
Yes.
for mixed methods, these researchers within pragmatism, they believe that reality is too complex. So one single method, for example, only quantity or quantity is not enough. So you need to combine both
Yes. Yes.
methods.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, right. Oh, I think we have another question. Warda, do you want to read the question? Or I read the question?
Okay, I will read the question for you.
Okay.
Okay. This question comes from Masra Jamil, where she said that she used to study with a document for a qualitative study. It is sufficient to do analysis document only and just do triangulation on people on different locations, not use triangulation method on collecting data.
Mm. Yeah, I think Dr. Latisha has answered that. Yes, I agree. Yes, you can. That is also a form of triangulation. Okay. Though you are using a single method of data collection, which is written document, or we call artifacts. Okay. So you can triangulate it. You can collect it from different people. So that is, if I'm not mistaken, is in-person triangulation. Maybe you need to read more on that. Okay. Yeah, yep. It is a form of triangulation. Yes.
Right. For the next question, which is comes from me as well. There are situations where we need to be with the participants. How do the field work during pandemic? Do you have any suggestions on how to overcome this problem?
Dr. Liu, do you want to answer?
Actually, I have no idea about the fieldwork in epidemic. However, the others methods, for example, interview method, okay, diary method, think a lot method, literature review method, and etc. Can still be carried out with technology. Okay, like we can interview the interviewee through the Google Meet, not with face to face. Okay.
Mm. Yep. I agree with Dr. Liu. That's the beauty of qualitative. Okay, it is flexible and it depends on the situation and your participants, your context. So in this pandemic, maybe you would want to conduct your study using technology. Like I said, you maybe it's better for you to interview your participants through Google Meet. And for the, as I said, it's also important to establish your rapport with your participants. So I think with technology nowadays, it's not that, how to say, difficult because we can always text them through WhatsApp. All right. So to establish the rapport with our participants. Actually, I have a friend here, Yan Ping. Are you still there? She's conducting a study now during the pandemic. Maybe you would like to type your response, or you would like to share with us how you conduct your study. How you collect your data during the pandemic. Yan Ping, are you there?
Okay, while Yaping is typing, right? Can I add?
Okay. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's say for example, Walda, because we are now in pandemic, what you can do would be, for example, in my study, I did online observation. So you can do online observation. And during the pandemic, people are connected, but they're connected using the online environment. So that would be your forte. I mean, there will be a rich data if you study Twitter. Is easier Twitter, or if it's on Facebook, Instagram, because you don't have to transcribe because it's written there, right? And then, for example, you can look at the video, and you could look at, as Dr. Marcia said, you could have the interview over there, right? So during the pandemic, people are, I mean, it's good for the researcher because they are stuck over there. And we have actually a lot of data, and people are very familiar with, now they are getting familiar with the let's say with webcam and conferences, webinar, and there will be a lot of data. I think that during the pandemic, people are stuck. They don't go on holiday, they're stuck in online environment. That will be the niche area. It's a lot of data over there. All right, people are really, there's a new norm, how to handle that one. What is the new norm? How do people, why do people slightly embrace the new norm? How people, some people, they are very traditionally cling to the old norm. So that will be a lot of data. If I say that the pandemic is, I know that I'm being recorded. It's like it's a doom or it's terrible, but for a researchers, this is new thing. There are things to research. People are behaving differently. For qualitative researchers like us, we want to know about the society, the phenomena. It's like heaven sent, right? So in the quotation, it's not heaven sent, right? But yes, you can collect that, but you cannot go for traditional method. And you know that I mean, let's say for example, if you want to collect data, you have to observe the new SOP, right? So you have to come to put that one, and if that becomes, you have to put that one into the research design. And when you are a qualitative researcher, you have to have all the things that you want to do. You cannot just jump into the study. You have to prepare. You have to come up with a protocol, just like Dr. Raz said that she discussed just what Dr. You put it. You have to have step by step. Because why? Because if you are the qualitative researcher, you are the instrument. So you have to be ready, you have to be prepared, you have to be planned. Because why? Because remember, qualitative research is subjective. So you have to be detailed, and everything that you do, you must put it there. The steps are there. We call it protocol, and you must have justification. Why are you doing this one? Because why? Because other researchers, if they want to follow, when they read your qualitative study, qualitative research, they want to follow, they know it's a step by step one, what you need to do, why you are doing this, why you're not doing this one, right? So that's why. So during the pandemic, as a qualitative researcher, we don't say that we can't research during the pandemic, not just qualitative, quantitative. We are researchers. So when when we are researchers, new things, we embrace the situation, right? Online observation was that. But if you're going to go to face, and then you have to look at what would be the procedure. So those are the procedure, those are the things that would add novelty in your study, right? So meaning that now you don't have the reason. The pandemic wouldn't stop you. The pandemic would motivate you, would propel you into a new field. This is your area. All right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Latisha, for the very inspiring
Yes. Okay.
advice.
I'm still listening here. Ethics online. Yes. Okay. Marcia was asking that one. Yes, the ethics online. Yes, you have to have the ethics, definitely. You can't. There will be certain ethics, even though it's online. We practice what is offline, what is the or the what is the agreed ethics. For example, in UiTM, we have this ethic committee, meaning that if we are going to interview, if we are going to ask interview students or participants, we have to come up with the question, and then we have to submit to the ethics committee, because the ethics committee will look at the question and look at whether the question will be safe to our participants. Yes, even though it's online, we still strictly observe and follow the ethics. Definitely, online and offline wouldn't influence our. We wouldn't compromise, because we are researcher. We have our ethics. We won't compromise even in online contact. Online and offline contact is contact. In any contact, we have to observe the ethics. Right.
Yep. I agree with yes, I agree with Dr. Latisha.
The data that we collected, we have to put it in somewhere safe. And in our let's say report, we have to tell them where do we put the data. All right. Even though it's questionnaire, and then where do we put the data. All right. And then who's going to see the data? Where would the data be published? All right. And then you know that we have to protect our participants. All right. People wouldn't know if people type if they use enormous let's say nickname. If they type, they wouldn't know. All right. So remember that one. Your job is your responsibility to protect the safety of your participants. Right. Remember that one. So if you're using Facebook, if you're creating a Facebook group, make sure it's a secret group, because secret group people wouldn't know it's a secret group. Okay. But if you put private group, people will be able to find. So you must make sure one thing: when your participant trusts you, you have to take care of that trust, because in qualitative, trust is very important. Right. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
I agree with Dr. Latisha. It's really because remember we are working with real people, human participants, where we need to their identity and even their the study site, because sometimes maybe their responses might, we don't want, let's say if you interview students, we don't want their lecturers to identify the students, or maybe their superiors. If you're interviewing lecturers, you don't want their bosses to know these are the responses, because that might have an effect on their marks, ATP, right? Things like that. So you should always justify in the ethics application how would you protect the participants as well as the data, especially if you're working with vulnerable groups of people like children, abused children, or refugees, things like that. Right.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Latisha, Dr. Razlina, and Dr. Ling. Also, thank you to Dr. So, Dr. Masya, Dr. Yanti as well.
Yep.
Do you have, from the audience, do you have more questions to answer, to ask? Okay. Before we end our session for today, please make sure to sign up for your attendance. There's a link provided by Ms. Nadia Osman in the chat. So, Dr. Latisha, are we going to end our session for today?
Yes. Let's see. Do you have any question? Ethics would be, I think that what is agreed online or offline is similar to online, all right? But you have to be very careful of, and you remember one of the thing before, remember Dr. Liu or Dr. Raz say about member checking. So meaning that whenever the transcribe, once you transcribe and then give it back to them and look and then make sure that they agree. And remember, whenever you recruit the participants, they must understand that it's voluntary. They can leave anytime, right? But if they are vested in your research, they wouldn't leave, right? And then make sure that you get their signature, because it's very important, okay? Because if you're doing your PhD, at least I think the examiner would want to see, right? Then what else? I think that as I said, what Dr. Ras and Dr. Liu say, during qualitative research, you have to have a checklist. Because why? Because it's a lot of data, and you need to know that you are doing the right one. And usually, you have to transcribe. After the transcribe, clean the data, and so on. Right? But even though it's a little bit burdensome, the data will be a lot. I think that is rewarding. Because in my part, I think it's rewarding because I can really say that I think that the participants, I think I owe a lot of gratitude to to my participants, because they willingly share their experience, and we get to know they're not simply numbers. They are people with experiences. Okay, and I value the research. And then let's say, for example, if you're doing Twitter or Facebook, you know that whenever you're doing a Twitter, especially the group, or the Facebook group, you have to ask permission from the members. Because if you don't have permission, you can't publish and publish the article or publish anything, because that would be under ethics. Okay, well, I'm always a qualitative researcher. Okay.
Me too.
And yeah. So, it can be, question. Yamping said that yes, I know a lot of what could you read Yamping respond?
Yes, I'm reading her response in the chat.
Yes. So
It did say about ethics.
yeah, the ethics and the WeChat. I think that in let's say in China they're using the WeChat. I think.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I want to talk on behalf of Yang Ping, because she can't use her microphone somehow. So she's in New Zealand, but her participants are in China. So the initial plan was that she would return to China to collect the data. However, the pandemic happened, so she can't go back to China to collect the data. So as I said, you should always be prepared and pretty flexible. Just stay calm if it doesn't go to according to your plan. Just be flexible, and like she said, she changed the method. And as I said, with technology, everything is possible. Yeah.
Yes, with the qualitative data, you must remember one thing. Do the research if it's feasible. That means that there are willing and able participants.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If there are no participants, then it's going to be very hard on you, right? And on the research too, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah, especially if you let's say if you need to if you want to study about indigenous people, okay, you need to travel to their place. So you need to think whether or not would it be convenient for you, right? How are you going to approach them? So these are the things that you need to consider before you conduct the study, not while writing your proposal. Right?
I agree. So being any researcher, you need to have a plan, a detailed plan, right? In terms of qualitative researchers, you need to plan, right? And then before you do anything, right? So plan and do a lot of things. What I can advise will be read other people's paper or thesis. Okay. Yes, I learned a lot from Dr. Ras and Dr. Liu and this discussion today. Thank you very much. It was like, okay, this is good, right? And I'm going through the video again. Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
It's up to you, Walda. You are the chairperson, right? So you can end the presentation if everything is finished.
Doctor, I have one more question.
Okay.
Dr. Latisha, you did mention about the secrecy of participants' responses. So, for example, if I have a supervisor later on,
Okay.
may I disclose that information to my supervisor, or I should not do that?
You can with your supervisor, yes, because your supervisor will be your team of researchers, right? But outside the circle, no. But if you're going to publish even the data, the written form, you have to store in somewhere that is safe. Let's say the office. You have to write. You have to declare, right? And then later on, when you publish, right, a certain the response, the name. You must make sure that the name, right? You have changed the name and try test using the internet whether it can be searchable. If it can be searchable, then you have to, let's say, for example, put it. Let's say it's the information is not easy to find out, right? Because why? Because with the internet and the social media, if you don't disclose, the information can leak out and people can know, oh, this is this person, this person, right?
Yeah. Can I add to that? Okay. So, yes, it is ethical to share our raw data with our supervisors. As Dr. Latisha said, they are our team. So, you need to write that you need to make it clear in your ethics application, because I'm not sure about UiTM, but at my university, we need to write, okay, how are we going to preserve the data? How are we going to protect the participants from harm? Okay, and also with whom are we sharing the data with? Okay, and how are we going to okay, if we are to publish that paper, how are we going to preserve the anonymity? Okay.
Yes, in UiTM, I mean, starting I think September 2020, I think that everybody who's doing the research, even the undergraduate, has to go. I had to apply to I think ethics committee, right? Because we have to be responsible. We have to be ethical researchers, right? I think that is good because you can receive feedback.
Okay. So do we have more questions?
If you have questions, you can always contact us through our email.
Yes.
Or maybe you are interested to be our postgraduate students.
So the rest is advertising, which is good.
Just kidding. Okay, Wardah, back to you.
Okay, so if we have nothing more, thank you everyone for participating in this webinar session. We have now come to the end of our webinar. Again, a huge round of applause to Dr. Razlina and Dr. Liu for imparting their knowledge to us. I would also like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar and sharing their experiences in writing research. So before we end our webinar for today, please remember to sign up for your attendance through the link given by Ms. Nazira Osman. If you are free, do join our next webinar session by Dr. Umi Shara and Dr. Nabila at 3 p.m. next Friday, 11th December. Our amazing speakers are eager to share experience and knowledge with everyone. That is all. Take care and stay safe.
Hi, thank you everyone. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you for watching. Yeah, watching all the way from Myanmar, from New Zealand. Really appreciate it.
Yes,
Right.
really appreciate all of your experiences and sharing advices.
This is the last one for this year for Cisco and 14, because the next one will be in Bahasa Melayu, right? But we promise this one. Once we have it in English, we will definitely invite you. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Dr. Latisha and your team for having a chance to participate your invaluable suggestions and for your webinar. Thank you so much.
We are honored that you joined us.
Yeah, really.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. So and Dr. Jin. We appreciate, right?
Yeah.
And Yan Pin, thank you very much. We really appreciate that one. And to everybody, right, the participants, right,
Thank you.
Wanda, the MC, Dr. Ras and Dr. Liu, thanks a lot for
Thank
teaching
you.
me today.
Thank you, Dr. Liu.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice day.
Have a nice
Bye-bye.
day.
Have a
Enjoy
nice
your
one.
weekend.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Bye. Happy weekend.
Bye. Bye-bye.